Hello! Let's start a new sketchbook together. I'm so excited for this one. Ridiculously excited, in fact. I've been looking forward to this for quite a few weeks, ever since I thought of the idea. I've still got these two that I'm working in, but I'm kind of doing that in my own time off camera. I thought it would just be really fun to fill a whole sketchbook starting from scratch and do everything on camera over time. How long is this going to take? I have no idea. It could be a year, it could be 10 years. I really hope it's not the latter. If you've got a sketchbook, do join me for this. It should be a lot of fun. I'm hoping you'll come along for the ride. I am absolutely dying to open this and get it out of the plastic, so let's get into it. Honestly, how good is it to peel the plastic off a brand new sketchbook? A brand new anything, really. It's one of life's simple pleasures. I really need to swap out these scissors though, they're getting very blunt. But I ripped into it eventually, and with one satisfying peel, it's all off, and here's what the book looks like, minus all of the light reflection. The book I've chosen is an Ohuhu mixed media. It has 78 pages or 156 sides, it's 200 GSM, and it's a 21 centimeters square or 8.3 inches. I like the texture of the cover, and it's a hardback book because I figured a hardback is probably better for this, and it should hold up to wear and tear. They also have a little stamp embossed in the cover there. So opening it up, and you'll see it in a moment, there is a nice plasticky sheet here which can be used to protect pages underneath while you're working through the sketchbook, particularly for alcohol markers. The pages are perforated and it's a nice bright white paper. It looks pretty thick, and I'm hoping that it's going to hold up to everything that I throw at it. It actually does have more texture than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be really smooth, but it is quite textury, and look how many pages there are. Oh my gosh, what am I going to put in here? But really, it's just working a page at a time, so I'm not going to worry about that. In the back of the book is a nice little pocket as well, which I always really like because I often store scrappy bits of paper in my sketchbook, and I think it's meant to hold this plastic sheet, but do you think I could get it in the whole way? I could not. I'm sure it's meant to go in there, but this is as far as I could get it to go, so I'll be dealing with that later off camera, and hopefully I'll get it in there eventually. Let me know in the comments if it's actually supposed to go in that pocket. But anyway, let's get on to the most important part, and that is starting the sketchbook. I'm sure you're familiar with this scenario. You've got a brand new sketchbook and you open it for the first time, seeing those pristine white pages just waiting to be filled. But what on earth do you put on that first page? One tip is to start on a different page, but I'm stubborn. I like to begin on the very first page, and I'll almost always turn it into a title page. I decided for this one I was going to use some alcohol markers. I'm grabbing out that plastic sheet because I also wanted to test that out, picking up dirt already. That will protect the piece of paper underneath, and if I get some alcohol bleed through, it's not going to be a problem. And here I'm taking in a few relaxing deep breaths in and out, trying to psych myself up to put this marker straight onto the book. Now, I probably should have used a pencil, but no, I had it in my head I wanted this particular colour of marker, and I drew in a big teal green blob. I was basically just trying to get something on the page because I had no idea how to start this book, and you can see I've made a mess of it already. I'm off to a great start here. I swapped over to the chisel nib and I started colouring the paper in. Now, I found out firsthand that this paper is very absorbent and it sucks the ink in really quickly. So at the rate I was going here, I was going to use up this pen really fast, and I didn't want to do that. These Artex markers do not have refills, they're a one-use pen only, and I was a little bit reluctant to use up all of the ink. But I was kind of thinking of drawing something that had a nice gradient, so I was starting off with a darker colour here, and then I was going to try and blend in a lighter colour to make kind of a starting point to put some text in the middle, and then go in the outer areas with a darker pen again to make a nice gradient from really light in the middle to dark on the outside. It didn't work like that, unfortunately, and I'm showing you this in real time because I was literally sitting here drawing this just going, what the heck am I doing? Because the paper's very thirsty, it was absorbing the marker pen and much more quickly than I was expecting, and so I was kind of getting the impression just from here that the pen was not going to blend the way I wanted it to. You can see how it's streaking quite a lot, and that's because the alcohol is soaking into the paper and drying fairly quickly, so when I add on a new layer, you can see that line definition between the dry pen and the wet pen, and it just looks like a total mess. I wasn't panicking here at all. But I think for using markers, then the Ohuhu marker pad would have been a better option. But I do want to use other supplies in this book, which is why I went for the mixed media paper. But because I've never used this book before, it was really a learning curve, and I didn't actually spend the time testing out on a piece of paper in the book all of the supplies that I'm intending on using. I'm just trying to wing it a little bit. Yeah, not such a great idea with these marker pens. Already the pen felt like it was drying out, and it was just getting sucked so quickly into the paper and not blending nicely how I wanted. So you can see that line definition between the light and the dark pens. There's no way that is going to blend any more than that. And I've sped up the footage a bit here because this took me a surprisingly long time to do. And I'll just flip over the page here so you can see what it's looking like. It does bleed through the paper as well, so I'm really glad they've included that plastic sheet underneath. My thought process right at this time was, I've completely ruined this first page in the sketchbook and I don't know what to do to fix it. I was just sitting here drawing lines to try and get some sort of definition in it, but I had just gone completely blank at this point. And I was getting quite stressed out, thinking that people are going to be watching this because I'm filming it to put in a YouTube video. And yeah, it's a really scary feeling sometimes. I was already breaking my resolution of staying relaxed and enjoying art this year because I was not a happy camper at this point. I was just going, what am I going to do to fix this? I don't know, panic. Oh, it's such a ridiculous thing. It's just a piece of paper, Becky. But for some reason, it just gets overblown in my mind, and I make a huge drama out of something that really doesn't need to be that much of a drama. I can't help myself sometimes, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I genuinely considered actually ordering another sketchbook, the same one, so that I could start again and not show you any of this mess, which would make me quite a hypocrite, because how many times have I said it doesn't really matter if you make a mess in your sketchbook? But I had forgotten my own advice in the heat of the moment at this point, and so I was really thinking that I was going to have to start again. I mean, the pages are perforated. I could have just torn the page out of this book and it wouldn't have made a mess of the whole thing, but no, I was refusing to do that as well. So I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do? I'm just going to keep working on it here for the moment while I ponder that, because at this point I was thinking, I'm just going to get a new book anyway, so I'll just keep playing around with this for a little while. And I was getting the formation of an idea, because now I'd drawn in the little lines around the darker circle, it was making me think of things like sea creatures and rocks like geodes. And once I got the idea of geode in my head, an idea started to ferment in my mind. Now, I decided to leave it at this point because it was late in the day and I was getting really tired. I wanted to sleep on it before I made any further decisions. I am so glad I did this, because when I saw it in the morning, it's not so bad, I can deal with this. I'm going to get more pens, I've got some sparkly paints to work with, and I'm just going to throw stuff on this page until I like it. And you can rest assured that I did not buy a new book. I'm going to rescue this one. Here's another fun supply I bought last year. It's a bunch of stencils, and I have a whole bunch of other stencils that I put in here. I found this on Amazon. It came with the grey zipper case and all of these white stencils, which I'll eventually get out of here. I'll link it in the description below because these are fantastic. There's a nice range of letter stencils in here, but I mainly got it for the line stencils because those are so great for putting into a book so you can add writing, and it just saves a lot of time having to measure with the ruler. It's an excellent time-saving device. You can see how it works here. Just pick whatever lines you want and rule them in. I was counting down to make a fairly large space so I can add some writing there, and it took me a couple of goes before I was happy with that. And then I just grabbed the stencils and I'm getting to work writing in the text that I wanted, which is "Welcome to Becky's Sketchbook." I picked a different stencil for each line so I would get some variety in the text, because I think that looks quite nice, but you could use the same text for all of it. It's not a big deal, just whatever your preference is. I decided to put the bulk of my text on the left-hand side here on the inside cover because it's the same paper, which is great. Then I added the starting date into the center of the geode on the side here, or whatever the heck this is supposed to be, and I'm leaving a bit of room so I can add in a finish date when I eventually finish this book, which seems like forever away just looking at how many pages there are, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm just enjoying each page as it comes. So we'll start off with Jan 2025, and you can see it's not exactly aligned with the central part of the geode. It really doesn't matter, I'm just going to work around it. At this point I figured a few mistakes are okay. Or are they mistakes? Perhaps they're just happy accidents. I'm using a fine liner to ink in all the letters, and this ink is waterproof, which is going to come in very handy later on. So my title page has become a title page spread, and I'm incorporating the inside cover as well. I actually think it's worked out better this way anyhow, because I really like the writing on the left-hand side of the book here. So all's well that ends well there. I love those letter stencils. They saved so much time, because even with that, it took me about 3 hours just sitting here making this double page spread. I was so much more relaxed the morning I did this, and after sleeping on it, which is always a really good thing to do when something is stressing you out, I was able to see that it really wasn't that big of a disaster, and I was going to be able to do something with it. Normally, if I was just working in the sketchbook for myself, I wouldn't have been bothered by this at all, but it was just the thought that all of you are going to watch this that I was getting a bit panicky, and I know that sounds really silly, but it is a legitimate feeling that I often get. And I'm working on this geode. I'm going around with different shades of that teal green to get the striations in the rock. If you crack a geode open and you can see all of those different stripes, that's kind of what I was thinking in my head. I wasn't using any reference here, this is just entirely made up, and I was just imagining what a geode kind of looks like. You can see it's still quite messy, but I do have a fix for this, and I already knew what I was going to do, so I was feeling quite relaxed, and I was actually enjoying the process finally. Doing what I said I was going to do, and that's have fun with art rather than getting all worked up over it. And now it's time to bust out the watercolours, and I can happily report that this paper takes watercolour really well. I mean, it's not a cotton watercolour paper by any means, but the watercolour sat on it fine. You can see it's kind of moving away from the alcohol ink, and that's because the alcohol's repelling it, but it thankfully wasn't too much of an issue. And then I just went in over the entire cover page with a mix of turquoise and green watercolours. And you can see that that waterproof ink on the lettering is holding up perfectly. And now for the best bit, the sparkly paints, and this is where the whole thing came together. And at this point I was having the best time just painting on this gorgeous sparkly paint. It's a handmade watercolour by an Australian artist. I'll try and remember to link her in the description below. The paints aren't exactly cheap, but they are really high quality, and I'm super impressed with them. You could see by the end of this video just how much of a dent I've made in a lot of these paints. I felt kind of sad over that, but I'm also really happy that I'm using up my art supplies, and I felt like the lettering needed sparkly paint as well, so I'm going over everything with that. The hardest part was not covering everything in sparkly paint, but I did use quite a lot of it on these 2 pages. And even though I had been worrying about putting this on YouTube the day before, I do have to give credit to all of you who watch my videos. You guys are the most supportive audience I could ever ask for. I hardly ever receive negative comments. I mean, I do get one here or there. I mean, it's par for the course when you're online that you're going to get haters. But the vast majority of people who comment on my videos are just so lovely, and I just want to say how much I appreciate your comments. It makes me feel so good, and it makes me want to continue the channel when I get those uplifting comments. Kindness is a simple yet powerful thing, and we definitely all need more of that in this depressing world. But look how shiny this page is becoming. They look so pretty under the studio lights, and it was so much fun using these paints. I mean, it's not exactly like a geode, but it's inspired by the concept of one, that you open this rock and it's all sparkly inside with those wonderful striations. So I'd love to know in the comments, did you start a sketchbook around this time, and what have you come up with for your starting page? Or have you started somewhere else in the book and you're going to come back and do a title page later on? Because that's always a great idea as well. I just like to work chronologically through a book from start to finish. And that's probably because I'm a little bit uptight, if you hadn't already guessed that. I try to tell myself to relax, but it doesn't always work. Anyway, I decided that all of these letters needed sparkly paint as well, because you just can't have too much of that, or at least I can't. And of course, once I'd done all that, I wanted to come back and outline all of the letters with black again, just to make them stand out really well from that background. I love the green on the black hair. You could see it just start emerging out into the light as it begins to settle. It's amazing. It's such a fascinating thing watching it in time-lapse as well, which is what I'm filming on here. There is no way I could do a voiceover for 3 hours. That would just take forever, and everyone would be fast asleep by then, I'm sure. So in case you missed my previous vlog video in which I talked about this book, I am basically planning to work in this sketchbook entirely on camera, which is why you can see I was getting a little bit stressed out, because I really do just want to share the entire process, start to finish, of filling a sketchbook and going through all of the trials and tribulations that come with it, because I'm not perfect. Some days I can't do art at all, and other days I'm a lot better at it, but really perfection is the death of creativity. Not every artwork has to be perfect, and I like to remind myself of this as well as everyone else. I know how disheartening it is when you do feel like you've made a mistake and you can't go on, or you just want to rip the page out or buy a new book and start again. But I just want to let you know that this is completely normal, and these feelings are ones that are shared by many people, including myself, so you're not alone out there. And if it gets too much, you can always put the book down and pick it up again the next day. So let's go into this with the aim of self-improvement and creativity and just having a good time with it, finding joy in making art. And in the end, I am feeling joy from this page spread. I love the colours, they're lovely and bright. The sparkles just set the whole thing off. And of course I had to add in a few juicy white highlights, because that always feels like it's finishing off the page. And then I felt like it needed a border, so I'm quickly ruling one in without measuring it, and using some of that green paint to go around the edge. I think this just tied the two pages in perfectly, and it really brings the whole thing together as one sort of theme. You can see I also overlapped the pages with the geode part, and that's deliberate as well, because I wanted to tie those two pages together and make it a large title page including both sides. I'm just neatening up the border with another black line over the top of the sparkly paint, and I was thinking to myself, this feels like a good place to stop doing stuff on these two pages. But one last thing, a few more highlights in that little border. I just had to do that. And here, my friends, is the start of my brand new sketchbook. Even though it's not what I was expecting to do, I just love it so much. I mean, look how shiny that paint is. I'm so happy with it. And the colours are gorgeous. So every time I open this now, I'm going to be really happy with that cover page. And because this took me so long to film, this is all I'm going to get done today, but I will get into the sketchbook a bit more in a few videos from now. I've got a couple of other reviews I need to do first, but I will be coming back to this very soon. I need to do something with the back of this page and all of these other pristine white pages. Ooh, so much potential. What will we do next? You're just going to have to subscribe for more videos, aren't you? And I will make a playlist of these ones, Sketchbook 2025. Well, that's got the book started. So next week I'm going to do a couple of product review videos, which I'd already promised to do in December, and I'm just going to get those done, and then I will get back into the sketchbook. One of those videos I might even feature this one. I haven't actually filmed it yet, so I don't really know what I'm doing, but I guess we'll find out together. Look out for one of those videos midweek, because I'm going to do 2 next week just to have them done. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and you might want to click the subscribe button for more videos, especially if you want to see more on this sketchbook. So I hope you're having a fantastic day out there, and I'll see you all again really soon in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!